The jungle didn't just swallow the trucks, it devoured the crew, the budget, and nearly the entire sanity of its director. Before Apocalypse Now turned tropical chaos into cinematic legend, William Friedkin had already dragged his cast and crew into the heart of something just as volatile: Sorcerer, 1977, a film whose title misleads as much as its history disappears. This wasn't a film about magic. It was about machines of death, lumbering over rotting rope bridges suspended above flood-swollen rivers, shot with no CGI, no green screens, and no backup plan. What unfolded was a production defined by obsession and near madness. Trucks rebuilt like Frankenstein's monsters, actors pushed past exhaustion, and entire bridges constructed and destroyed just to satisfy a singular directorial vision. Friedkin, riding high after The Exorcist, wanted not realism, but raw danger. And that's exactly what he got. Yet Sorcerer didn't just fail, it vanished. Released just weeks after Star Wars blasted into theaters, it was buried under lightsabers and space fantasies. Critics ignored it, audiences rejected it, studios disowned it. For decades, it was considered Friedkin's disaster piece, until it wasn't. In the years since, whispers have returned about missing scenes, about uncredited performances, about bizarre production choices, and real-life injuries. The film's very disappearance became part of its mythos. Was it sabotage? Was it arrogance? Or was Sorcerer simply cursed from the start? These are 20 weird facts you didn't know about Sorcerer. 1977. Each one reveals a layer of madness, mystery, or pure cinematic recklessness that's been buried too long until now. Fact 1. The bridge that tried to kill its star. It wasn't a set piece. It was a death trap. One of Sorcerer's most infamous scenes, two massive trucks inching across a collapsing rope bridge in a tropical downpour, was filmed using a real bridge over a real river during real storms. But few know that actor Roy Scheider nearly died filming it. Friedkin insisted on practical effects. The crew constructed a 450-foot suspension bridge over a river in the Dominican Republic. But nature didn't cooperate. Heavy rains washed out roads, delayed shooting for weeks, and destabilized the bridge. Worse, Friedkin refused to use stunt doubles. Roy Scheider, strapped inside a 10-ton truck, had to drive across as water surged beneath, tires slipping, cables swaying. At one point, a truck actually started sliding sideways, nearly taking Scheider with it. If the cables snapped, he would have been gone, one crew member recalled. Friedkin? He kept the cameras rolling. No reshoots, no safety nets. The scene looks chaotic because it was. What's shocking is that Scheider wasn't acting. His fear, his trembling hands, his breathless muttering, it was real. So when you watch that bridge scene again, ask yourself, was it great acting or just the terror of a man who realized he might die for a film no one would watch? Fact 2. The original title was so misleading. Even the studio panicked. Before Sorcerer became a box office ghost, it had already confused everyone in the boardroom. The title Sorcerer suggested black magic, wizards, the supernatural. But the film had none of that. It was a gritty survival thriller about men, trucks, and the volatile cargo of nitroglycerin. So why the name? Friedkin claimed it was metaphorical. The Sorcerer is the evil within us, he explained, referencing one of the trucks, nicknamed Sorcerer, in the film. But Universal and Paramount executives were furious. In a decade shaped by The Exorcist and The Omen, they'd expected demons, not diesel engines. Marketing was a mess. Posters hinted at the occult. Trailers gave no clear sense of plot. Test audiences were confused. People walked in expecting The Exorcist 2, a studio exec admitted, and got a jungle trucking movie instead. In hindsight, the title may have doomed the film before it even opened. It alienated horror fans and baffled action audiences. The question remains, did Friedkin sabotage his own film with a title no one understood, or was it an intentional red herring designed to weed out the unworthy? Fact 3. The film that died because of Star Wars. Sorcerer wasn't just overshadowed by Star Wars, it was obliterated. Released in June 1977, just 1 month after George Lucas's space opera exploded into theaters, Friedkin's gritty, punishing thriller never stood a chance. While Star Wars offered hope, color, and escapism, Sorcerer was dark, nihilistic, and relentlessly bleak. Audiences had already chosen their fantasy. Star Wars played on more screens. It had the merchandising machine, the buzz, and the repeat viewers. Meanwhile, Sorcerer opened to lukewarm reviews and half-empty theaters. Within weeks, it was pulled from most cinemas. By August, it was already being referred to as a box office bomb. But some insiders believe the timing wasn't just bad luck. There are rumors that Universal executives, worried about Friedkin's rising power after The Exorcist, deliberately dumped the film during the worst possible window. Others point to Friedkin's refusal to compromise or promote the film traditionally. The cruel irony? Sorcerer cost nearly 3 times more than Star Wars and earned less than a tenth of its revenue. So ask yourself, was Sorcerer buried by the future of cinema, or was it deliberately erased for being too raw, too real, and too resistant to studio control? Fact 4. The film that Friedkin called cursed and meant it. William Friedkin didn't believe in curses until Sorcerer. From the moment cameras rolled, the production seemed plagued. Locations collapsed, equipment vanished. Key crew members quit mid-shoot. One even claimed the jungle didn't want them there. But the worst omen came early. Just days into filming in Mexico, a flash flood destroyed an entire set overnight. Friedkin took it as a sign. So did the locals. In the Dominican Republic, superstitious villagers warned the crew not to disturb certain riverbanks believed to house spirits. They ignored them, and a bridge collapsed 2 weeks later. In Ecuador, a generator exploded, injuring 2 grips. Elsewhere, Friedkin contracted malaria. Meanwhile, Roy Scheider reportedly had multiple breakdowns on set, some captured on camera. Friedkin later called Sorcerer the most cursed experience of my life. For a man who'd filmed The Exorcist, that says something. Was it just bad luck, tropical logistics, or was something genuinely wrong with the production's soul? The real question is, did Friedkin summon a curse by sheer will, or did the jungle simply answer back? Fact 5. The insane length Friedkin went to build a real jungle bridge. Most directors would have used miniatures. Friedkin built a bridge twice. The pivotal rope bridge scene required a massive practical set. Friedkin's team constructed a full-scale suspension bridge over a river in the Dominican Republic, costing over $1 million. Then it rained. For weeks, the river swelled, the banks eroded, and the structure became unusable. Rather than rewrite or use effects, Friedkin ordered the entire bridge rebuilt, this time in a drier location. They found a spot near Tuxtepec, Mexico, and started from scratch. Local engineers were hired, helicopters delivered materials. Villagers were paid to simulate rainfall with hoses and buckets. The second bridge was even larger and more complex. But Friedkin wasn't satisfied until it swayed, buckled, and shrieked under pressure. He shot the scene over several harrowing weeks, during real storms, with real trucks teetering on the edge. The budget ballooned. The studio panicked. But Friedkin stood firm. So the next time you see that bridge tremble and twist, remember, it wasn't a special effect, it was a $1 million act of madness, built to fall apart. Fact Zess. Steve McQueen almost starred but quit over one condition. Sorcerer was nearly a Steve McQueen vehicle until the King of Cool walked away. McQueen was Friedkin's top choice to lead the film. Coming off Papillon and The Towering Inferno, he had both box office power and the grit Friedkin wanted. McQueen loved the script. He even began prepping for the role. But then came the deal breaker. He insisted his wife, Ali McGraw, be allowed to join him on location. Friedkin refused. Sorcerer was to be shot in brutal, remote jungle locations. No guests, no exceptions. McQueen pushed back. He offered to take a lower salary to pay for her travel himself. Still, Friedkin wouldn't budge. Frustrated, McQueen walked away. Roy Scheider, then fresh off Jaws, stepped in. It was a huge loss. McQueen's name could have drawn audiences and boosted press. Some argue that had he stayed, the film might have weathered its box office storm. But Friedkin never apologized. This wasn't a vacation, he later said. It was war. So ask yourself, was Friedkin protecting the integrity of his vision? Or sabotaging his own film by turning down its biggest star? Fact 7. Friedkin fired half the crew mid-shoot. On most productions, firing 1 or 2 crew members is a crisis. On Sorcerer, Friedkin fired half the team overnight. Frustrated by delays, technical failures, and a growing sense that the crew didn't share his obsessive vision, Friedkin launched what some called a purge. According to insiders, he dismissed over 50% of his department heads during filming in South America. The cinematographer? Replaced. The production manager? Gone. Even key sound and lighting technicians were removed. Crew members described the atmosphere as militarized. Some were let go for questioning safety protocols, others for simply being too slow. Friedkin, already infamous for his intensity, ran the set like a war zone. New replacements were flown in within days, many from his personal network back in Los Angeles. But this chaos came at a cost. Continuity suffered, communication broke down. A few scenes had to be reshot entirely because new crew didn't match prior setups. Yet Friedkin didn't flinch. He later defended his actions. You can't build a cathedral with bricklayers who don't believe in the architecture. The irony? In trying to maintain control, Friedkin created the very instability that threatened to collapse the film from within. Fact 8. The music was created by a band that had never scored a film. Tangerine Dream didn't just compose the soundtrack, they redefined the film's soul. At the time, the German electronic band was known for experimental albums, not for film scores. Friedkin saw them perform live in Europe and was mesmerized. He handed them a rough cut of Sorcerer and asked for music. No brief, no timing sheets, just mood. The result? A haunting, pulsing, synth-heavy score that added tension where silence would have sufficed. It was mechanical, hypnotic, and strangely human like the trucks themselves. What's stranger is that the band composed everything before seeing the final cut. Friedkin edited the film to match their pre-recorded tracks, not the other way around. It was radical for 1977. No orchestra. No tradicional pues. The score wasn't just background, it became the heartbeat of the film. So ask yourself, was this a bold sonic experiment, or the moment Tangerine Dream accidentally invented a whole new era of film scoring? Fact 9. A real explosion went horribly wrong and almost ended production. Blowing up a tree for a movie is one thing. Blowing up part of your set by mistake is another. During one intense sequence in Sorcerer, the characters clear a massive fallen tree using nitroglycerin. To shoot it, Friedkin's team planted controlled explosives under a prop log, except something went wrong. A miscommunication with the local demolition crew led to the explosives being rigged under the wrong section of the set. When detonated, the blast not only obliterated the fake tree but also destroyed lighting rigs, damaged 2 cameras, and injured a crew member standing too close. Shooting halted for days. Insurance representatives flew in. Studio execs threatened to shut the project down. Friedkin, unbothered, reviewed the footage and insisted it looked perfect. He even refused to reshoot the scene. "That was chaos," he reportedly said, "and that's what I needed." In the final cut, the explosion feels raw, uncontrolled, terrifying because it was. So here's the question. Was this recklessness or genius? Or, in Friedkin's world, were those always the same thing? Fact 10. Roy Scheider wasn't the first or second choice. He headlined Jaws, but he wasn't Friedkin's first call. Roy Scheider only got the lead in Sorcerer after 2 other actors passed. First was Steve McQueen, who loved the script but backed out when Friedkin wouldn't allow his wife, Ali McGraw, on location. Then came Marcello Mastroianni, the Italian icon, who declined due to the harsh filming conditions and schedule conflict. By the time Friedkin turned to Scheider, the studio was skeptical. Universal doubted his star power, arguing he wasn't a guaranteed box office draw outside Spielberg's shark-infested waters. Friedkin insisted he liked Scheider's edge, his weariness, his ability to look like a man haunted by past sin. But tensions ran high. Reports suggest Friedkin berated Scheider on set, calling for retakes even when scenes were technically perfect. The actor, already under physical and emotional stress from the jungle conditions, grew resentful. In one instance, Scheider stormed off set after a screaming match. Friedkin didn't follow. Their working relationship never fully healed. After Sorcerer, they never collaborated again, which raises the question, did Friedkin get the performance he wanted by breaking his actor? Or did he lose a creative ally by pushing too far? Fact 11. A test screening ended in near riot. The first audience to see Sorcerer didn't walk out, they shouted. The test screening was held in a suburban California theater weeks before the official release. Executives, anxious about the film's grim tone and unconventional pacing, wanted feedback. They got more than they bargained for. According to reports, many audience members were confused from the opening scene, which presented 4 unrelated vignettes in different languages. Some thought they'd walked into the wrong film. Others were upset by the bleak violence and lack of a clear hero. About halfway through the screening, a group began heckling the screen. By the final act, one man stood up and yelled, "What the hell did I just watch?" Security had to escort several attendees out after they started arguing in the aisle. Studio heads were rattled. One reportedly turned to Friedkin and asked, "Can you cut a version that makes sense?" Friedkin refused. No scenes were trimmed, no edits made. He later said, "If I wanted applause, I would have made Star Wars." Fact 12. The studio tried to pull the plug twice. The budget was bleeding, the schedule was collapsing, and the studio had had enough twice. Initially greenlit at $12 million, Sorcerer ballooned past $20 million as location problems, reshoots, and logistical nightmares mounted. Executives at Universal and Paramount began pressing Friedkin to bring the production home or shut it down entirely. The first intervention came during the Dominican Republic shoot. Executives flew in, appalled by the chaos, and offered Friedkin an ultimatum: move the rest of filming to backlots in LA or lose financing. Friedkin responded by showing them raw footage of the bridge scene. It was enough to buy time. The second attempt came after the Mexican reshoots dragged past schedule. This time, studio lawyers were involved, contracts were reviewed, threats were made. Friedkin called their bluff and kept shooting. According to one insider, he told them, "If you shut me down, you'll never see a frame. I'll burn the negatives before I let you take this from me." In the end, the film was completed, but only because Friedkin refused to surrender. So here's the dilemma. Was this artistic conviction or the tantrum of a director too deep in his own jungle fever to turn back? Fact 13. The French Connection that never was. Friedkin wanted another reunion, but it fell apart before the cameras rolled. After the success of The French Connection, 1971, William Friedkin was eager to work again with actor Gene Hackman. The role of Jackie Scanlon in Sorcerer was originally imagined for him, a desperate man with intelligence buried under layers of moral rot. Friedkin thought Hackman could deliver exactly that, but their working relationship had soured. During The French Connection, Friedkin had repeatedly pushed Hackman to his emotional and physical limits, demanding take after take in grueling street chases and violent confrontations. Hackman complied but vowed never to work with Friedkin again. Still, Friedkin tried. He sent the script. He made the offer. Hackman declined immediately. Ironically, Roy Scheider, who eventually took the role, had once been considered for The French Connection himself. In a strange way, the casting for Sorcerer was a ghost echo of what could have been. So one can't help but wonder, would Sorcerer have been a different beast with Hackman's rage at its core? Or did Scheider's hollow desperation better match Friedkin's vision of decay? Fact 14. The truck that wouldn't start on camera or off. One of the trucks in Sorcerer became its own diva. Dubbed Lazaro by the crew, the vehicle was a Frankensteinian monster assembled from multiple rusted-out chassis, salvaged axles, and engine parts from at least 4 different models. Friedkin wanted the truck to look like it had barely survived 100 wars. The problem was, it behaved like it had. During the shoot, the truck repeatedly failed to start. Mechanics were flown in from 3 countries. Parts were stripped, rewired, replaced. Still, it refused to cooperate during key takes. In one infamous scene, Scheider had to wrestle the wheel while it stalled mid-shot, nearly driving off a slope. But Friedkin loved it. He insisted the truck's unpredictability added realism. When producers demanded a backup vehicle, he refused. "We're filming the truck's character," he said, "not just a prop." It got to the point where the crew would take bets each morning. Would Lazaro start today? More often than not, the answer was no. In post-production, some of the truck's coughing, spluttering noises were left untouched. So ask yourself, was this mechanical failure or method acting by a machine built to die? Fact 15. The villager who walked into a scene and stayed in the final cut. One of the film's most striking moments wasn't scripted at all. During a tense jungle sequence, the truck rumbles past a desolate hillside where a lone figure stands silently, watching. Clad in rags, expression unreadable, the man doesn't move or acknowledge the passing vehicle. His presence is haunting. But he wasn't an extra. He was a local villager who wandered onto the set and froze when he saw the cameras. The crew assumed he was background talent. Friedkin assumed he was part of the scene and let the camera roll. No one said a word. Only in post-production did they realize the man hadn't signed a release, hadn't been paid, and hadn't been directed. By then, Friedkin refused to cut the shot. "He looked like he knew something the rest of us didn't," he later said. The man was never identified. His image remains in the final film uncredited, unexplained. So the next time you see him, ask yourself, was he just a bystander or the jungle's quiet witness to the madness unfolding around him? Fact 16. The sound of the jungle was almost entirely manufactured. You'd think a film shot deep in the rainforest wouldn't need help with ambient sound. You'd be wrong. Despite filming in real jungles across Latin America, much of Sorcerer's environmental soundscape was fabricated in post-production. Why? Because the real jungle didn't sound threatening enough. According to the sound team, Friedkin was obsessed with creating an atmosphere of dread even in silence. Crickets weren't ominous enough. Bird calls felt too cheerful, so they layered in unnatural audio. slowed down screeches, synthesized hisses, and manipulated wind howls. In one moment, the low rumble beneath a truck isn't an engine, it's a distorted recording of thunder and distant gunfire. Even rain was rebuilt from scratch. Actual on-set recordings were too inconsistent, too weak. Instead, engineers used massive water tanks in studio spaces, spraying onto tarps and metal sheets to create a deeper, more suffocating downpour. The result? A jungle that never quite sounds like a jungle. It breathes, it growls, it waits. So, the next time you feel unease watching Sorcerer, ask yourself, is it the image or the invisible manipulation of every sound you think is natural? Fact 17. Friedkin threatened to destroy the negative more than once. Most directors protect their footage like sacred relics. Friedkin threatened to burn his. As pressure mounted from the studios to finish Sorcerer under budget and on schedule, tempers flared. Executives wanted to pull scenes, trim runtime, simplify the opening structure. Friedkin, furious, pushed back hard. In a now legendary confrontation, he reportedly told a Paramount representative, "Touch one frame without my approval, and I'll set fire to the entire negative." It wasn't an empty threat. According to the editor, Friedkin once locked the work print in a private vault after a studio assistant attempted to duplicate a reel without his consent. His paranoia grew with the stakes. Rumors circulated that he carried personal copies of dailies with him, refusing to store them on site. At one point, he even banned producers from entering the editing room entirely. To Friedkin, Sorcerer wasn't just a film, it was a war of autonomy, and he would rather destroy it than see it diluted. So ask yourself, was this the stand of an uncompromising artist, or the breakdown of a man who couldn't let go? Fact 18. The original ending was supposed to be even darker. Yes, even darker than what made it to screen. The final minutes of Sorcerer already feel like a cruel joke. After surviving unimaginable horrors, Scanlon returns to a village bar only for a car full of armed men to pull up outside, suggesting he's about to die. But Friedkin's original vision was bleaker still. In an early version of the script, Scanlon never makes it back. The final truck explodes just minutes from town, killing him instantly. No survivors, no closure, just the jungle reclaiming what it had lent. The message was clear: survival was a myth. Everyone dies in the end. Executives pushed back, arguing that such an ending would alienate even the most art house audience. Friedkin reluctantly agreed to reshoot, adding the ambiguous final scene with the arriving car. Yet even in compromise, he left no hope. That lingering shot of the vehicle, the silent cut to black, it wasn't mercy. It was a pause before doom. So here's the unsettling truth. The ending you saw was the light version, and even that felt like the jungle had the last laugh. Fact 19. The film was nearly lost until a 4 Kelvin's resurrection decades later. For years, Sorcerer wasn't just forgotten, it was physically deteriorating. After its 1977 theatrical failure, Sorcerer fell into distribution limbo. Rights issues between Universal and Paramount, compounded by the film's commercial shame, meant it was never properly preserved or reissued. For decades, it existed only in low-quality VHS transfers and obscure European prints. Worse, the original negatives were neglected. Stored improperly, they began to fade and warp. By the early 2000s, some reels were considered irreparable. When Friedkin attempted to screen the film at festivals, he was appalled by the condition. But in 2013, something changed. Friedkin launched a personal campaign to recover and restore the film. He tracked down original materials, negotiated with both studios, and funded a new 4 Kelvin's restoration with Warner Brothers. The cleaned-up version premiered at the Venice Film Festival to standing ovations. Critics reappraised the film. What had been labeled a misfire now felt prophetic, raw, unrelenting, and stylistically ahead of its time. So here's the haunting irony. Only when Sorcerer was nearly lost did people finally see what had always been there, buried under decades of studio indifference. Fact 20. The title sequence hides a clue that no one notices. It flashes by in seconds, but it's always been there. In the film's sparse, minimal opening credits, the title Sorcerer appears over a crackling black screen, jagged red letters. No music, just the hiss of jungle ambiance. But hidden in the audio is something strange, a barely audible whisper layered beneath the sound design. Sound engineers later confirmed it was a slowed-down snippet of dialogue from a deleted scene. The line, "We were never meant to get out." Friedkin never addressed it publicly. It doesn't appear in scripts or production notes. Yet the audio file is embedded in every version since the restoration. Some speculate it was an in-joke. Others think it's a thematic statement, an echo of fatalism buried in noise. A few believe it was a glitch left in by accident. But knowing Friedkin's control over every frame and sound, an accident seems unlikely. So the next time you rewatch the opening, listen closely. What if the film told you everything from the start, only you weren't supposed to hear it? Bonus fact: the man who disappeared after the shoot. There's one name in Sorcerer's credits that no one can verify. Among the dozens of local crew members listed under special thanks in the final role, one entry stands out: G.F. Ariza, Transport Coordinator, Dominican Unit. When researchers tried to locate him years later during interviews, retrospectives, and restoration projects, no trace could be found. No employment records, no tax documents, not even an address. Some crew claimed they remembered a quiet, chain-smoking fixer who arranged river access, black market fuel, and late-night supply runs. Others insisted no one by that name ever worked on set. Friedkin, asked about it in 2014, said flatly, "I don't remember him, but if he's credited, I must have approved it." A few theorized he was a pseudonym for a controversial local figure who didn't want to be publicly associated with the film. Others believed it was Friedkin's way of honoring someone who helped the production but vanished before it wrapped. Or maybe someone who never really existed at all. The name remains in every official version, a mystery sealed into the film's DNA. So here's the final riddle. Was G. Ariza a real person lost to time? A ghost fixer who kept the jungle at bay? Or just one more myth from a production haunted by more than accidents? Now that you've seen what lurked behind Sorcerer's jungle fog-buried footage, missing men, and near-fatal ambition, tell us, which of these facts do you think was deliberately hidden, and why? Drop your theories in the comments. And if you know another film swallowed by time, sabotage, or silence, suggest it. We might just unearth that one next.